Welcome back to the channel, everyone. This is the Reluctant Gringo back again with another video. I love this time of year. Halloween and the Day of the Dead bring out our dark side, and we like to indulge by putting on a scary movie and turning the lights down low. To help you with this, today I'm presenting to you my top 10 favorite horror movies of all time. A few caveats before we begin. This is my list. It is my opinion about the 10 horror movies I love the most and had the most impact on me as a horror fan. Your list may be quite different, and that's the way it should be. I would love to know what your list is, so put it in the comment section for all to see. Number 2, I will not include Friday the 13th on this list. I did a separate video on Friday the 13th and how much I love that series and Jason. I want to give other franchises a moment to shine, so Jason has the day off. Number 3, only one entry per franchise. We can make a list of my favorite franchises, and we may well do that in the coming weeks, but this list is about individual films. Number 4, there are movies on this list that some call thrillers, not horror. But that is subjective, and what may scare me may not scare you, and vice versa. So I'd love to hear what you think in the comment section below. With that, let's begin. Number 10, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There is horror before this movie, and there is horror after this movie. This movie was a taboo. It was a movie that was considered off limits to anyone too young for the blood and the gore that made it so visceral of a viewing experience. When I finally was able to get a hold of a copy of this film and watch it, when I was probably too young to watch anything like it, it marked me. Leatherface is just a pure monster. A character of unhinged carnage and disgusting practices. Based off of a real-life serial killer, Ed Gein, Leatherface and his family are a portrayal of everything tribal, barbaric, and inhuman that could be imagined. The movie itself, directed by Tobe Hooper, is shot in a gritty, realistic, and sometimes documentary style that only adds to the uneasiness of the audience. At times you forget you are watching a fictional movie. Number 9, Jaws. To this day, I'm still nervous to go into the water. I can watch this movie over and over. The performances are incredible, and the fear it installs in us is as real and as palpable as it gets. Based off of real events in New Jersey in the 1920s, Jaws plays on our real-life fears. Great whites do exist. Sharks do attack people. The water is their domain, not ours. A killer shark that stakes its claim off a popular beach town is a monster that cannot be reasoned with. It cannot be communicated with. It has nothing but its instincts to feed, and for the town of Amity, they are the buffet. Every performance is delivered to absolute perfection, and the standout being Robert Shaw as Quint. His monologue about the real-life events surrounding the sinking of the USS Indianapolis is chilling, dreadful, and brings a realism to an already anxiety-ridden third act. Jaws is not just an iconic horror movie, it is an iconic movie. Period. Number 8, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Warriors. Freddy Krueger had to be on my list, as he is one of my favorite horror icons of all time. Choosing which entry in the Elm Street franchise was the difficult part. However, for me, Dream Warriors presents the perfect balance of horror and dark humor, which also gives us the Freddy Krueger that I love the most. Robert Englund gives us a vicious, vengeful Freddy, who is enjoying himself throughout the whole thing, delivering great one-liners with imaginative kills, and arguably one of the best in the franchise. Welcome to prime time, bitch. But what makes Dream Warriors stand out for me is the rest of the cast. Heather Langenkamp returns as Nancy Thompson, the original Nightmare final girl. She is joined by Patricia Arquette as Kristen Parker and a well-casted group of supporting actors. They are far from the formulaic group of victims you get in traditional slasher films, and you find yourself emotionally attached to them and rooting for their victory over the master of nightmares, Freddy. Number 7, Scream. Wes Craven proves once again just how good he really is. Scream is a deconstructive love letter to the genre that uses humor in a respectful and honorable way to deliver one of the greatest horror movies of all time. Using as many horror references and classic horror tropes as possible, Scream subverts our expectations at every turn to deliver a terrific scare and memorable kills. Arguably one of the most terrifying opening 10 minutes in cinematic history, Scream starts by letting the audience know that this film is not going to play by the old rules, but use them against its victims to manipulate them into inescapable danger. The cast is spot on. Billy and Stu emerged from the film as horror icons that spawned 5 sequels to date, putting Ghostface on a similar level as Jason, Freddy, and Michael Myers. Number 6, Phantasm. Angus Scrimm is the tall man in this part horror, part sci-fi offering. This film is pure 70s horror, combining an eerie atmosphere, a town that seems disconnected from everywhere else, and a young boy who accidentally stumbles upon the wicked tall man's evil machinations, and then needs to convince the adults that fill his life. The tall man oversees a mortuary where he appears to be stealing the bodies of his customers after burial. The reason? That's all part of the mystery. As well, he has a group of henchmen. What evil mastermind doesn't? Except his appear to be evil Jawas that wreak havoc on all that get in their way. However, let's talk about what this movie's really known for. Balls. These silver metallic killing spheres are a real terrifying creation that has become the symbol of the franchise as much as Scrim's tall man performance. They are both just fun and unnerving to watch. This is a movie that will give you scares, give you a sense of mystery, and give you a sense of fun like most teenage-centered movies of the 70s and 80s usually did. Number 5, Event Horizon. Space, time warps, a lost experimental ship, a crew ignorant of what they are flying into, and the essence of hell itself waiting for their arrival. These are the elements that make up the highly underrated horror movie, Event Horizon. Sam Neill is one of my favorites from the 80s and 90s, and he delivers again in this sci-fi horror along with Lawrence Fishburne, Kathleen Quinlan, Sean Pertwee, Jolie Richardson, and others. As Dr. Weir, he's supposed to be the expert who built the Event Horizon and therefore the perfect person to understand what went wrong, where the ship has been since it disappeared years ago, and how they can revive it. What he cannot know, what none of them can fully understand, is what the Event Horizon brought back with it from the furthest reaches of the universe. That answer is one filled with fear and death as the crew is slowly consumed both mentally and then physically by the ship. Part sci-fi action, part horror, and part psychological thriller, The Event Horizon is a movie worth spending a couple of hours on and putting into your late night Halloween horror rotation. Number 4, Pearl. This movie came out of nowhere. It's the prequel to the movie X, probably the best horror movie to come out in the last 2 years, until Pearl was released and topped its predecessor. So spoiler warning if you don't want to hear more if you haven't seen this movie. Pearl is the killer in the first movie, except there she's old and decrepit. In this prequel, we get to see Pearl as youthful and carefree, living with an overbearing mother and disabled father. She gets married only to see her husband sent off to the front lines of World War I. She has dreams and aspirations of becoming a star. She's a total lunatic. She kills a goose out of jealousy. She feeds her victims to a pet alligator she keeps in a pond. She humps scarecrows. She cheats and lies. She's a young woman who should be locked up and kept away from society at any and all costs. Except it's the turn of the century in rural America and no one recognizes the danger she really represents. Pearl is a movie that may, in time, be considered a masterpiece of independent filmmaking. In my mind, it already deserves a spot in the top 100 movies made this century. I suggest you watch X and then watch Pearl. This 1-2 punch is as powerful of a horror movie experience as you are likely to have in a long, long time. Number 3, Halloween. A quiet suburb, innocent teens, defenseless children, and a relentless psychopath. Add all of this up and you get Halloween. Every modern horror trope is created through this movie. It may not have the blood and the gore expected from the genre, but what it does have is a legendary performance by Jamie Lee Curtis, a masterful turn by Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis, and of course, arguably the most iconic movie killer of all time, Michael Myers. What can I say about this film that has not already been said? It may not have started the horror genre, but what it did do was make the horror genre a popular and profitable form of entertainment that allowed all others to follow in its footsteps. Without Michael Myers, there is no Jason, there is no Freddy, there is no Ghostface. The writing, the direction, the cinematography, and we cannot forget about that musical score, were perfect. If you've not seen it yet, then it must be first on your list this year. Number 2, The Exorcist. This film hits right at our core as human beings. The pure concept of good versus evil takes center stage, but here it is an ancient, primal, and spiritual battle. The fear comes from not just the visuals of a possessed little girl, Reagan, portrayed by Linda Blair, or the emotional torment we witness through the struggles of Father Karras, or Reagan's mother, but also through the idea that we all may be susceptible to these same things that we cannot see or easily understand. Demonic forces not only seeking the demise of our physical form, but the internal torture of our soul. The Exorcist is part of the zeitgeist of American film history and American pop culture. It is generally considered to be the scariest film of all time, and while it may have lost some of that ground throughout the decades, even those, like me, who have rewatched it countless times, still walk away disturbed and shaken by what we have just viewed. Number 1, Seven. If and when I make a list of my favorite movies of all time, Seven will be in the top 5. It was the first movie I ever purchased on DVD when I got myself a DVD player way back in the mid-90s. It is a movie that I have watched countless times, even knowing all the twists, turns, and reveals it has to offer, especially the end, which may be the greatest twist ever done in film. I won't spoil it for you if you've not seen the movie. If you have not seen this movie, you are missing one of the most well-crafted, dark narratives ever put to celluloid. The overall plot is the hunt for a serial killer who is using the 7 deadly sins as inspiration for his crimes. The killer is methodical, meticulous, and patient. Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman are letter perfect in every aspect of their roles. Their speech, their tics, their mannerisms, the way they carry themselves, the way they react off of each other. It just does not get any better than these two actors at the top of their craft. Now again, spoiler alert. Turn it off if you don't want to know. Kevin Spacey as John Doe is chilling. He is chilling because he could be anyone on the street. He has a moral code, a sense of purpose. He believes he is doing God's work. His kills are at times gory, his methods are medieval. His patience and tenacity may be the most fearsome part of him, exemplified by one victim who he has held hostage and tortured for over a year's time before the actual movie timeline even begins. And if this movie's plot was not enough, that ending. If you know, you know. If someone has spoiled it for you, I'm truly sorry. If you don't know, then this movie should be a priority for you. Not only will it frighten you and entertain you, after it is over, you will be left asking yourself this question: why does Hollywood not produce movies of this quality anymore? This movie will leave you disappointed in almost any Hollywood studio produced film over the last 20 years. It's just that damn good. And that's my list. What do you think? What's your list? If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, hit the like button, subscribe, and click on the thumbnail for my top 10 Friday the 13th films. As always, I appreciate you for watching. Until next time, I am the Reluctant Gringo, and from south of the border, salute and a huevo.